The gunshot cracked through the morning air, sending a flock of startled birds into the blue Montana sky as Zara Calloway's stagecoach was ambushed just 5 miles outside of Redemption Creek. The year was 1878, and the 22-year-old Eastern socialite had never imagined her journey west would begin with bandits, blood, and the death of her driver, nor that her life would be saved by a taciturn cowboy with eyes the color of a summer storm. "Don't move," the tall stranger instructed, his voice low and steady as he approached on horseback, rifle balanced across his saddle. The two bandits who'd survived his initial shots fled across the dusty plains, leaving Zara trembling in the doorway of the overturned coach. "I wasn't planning on it," she replied, clutching her reticule to her chest, the only possession she'd managed to save from the chaos. Her trunks had scattered across the ground, fine dresses and books mingling with the Montana dirt. The cowboy dismounted in one fluid motion, spurs jingling as his boots hit the ground. He removed his hat, revealing dark hair streaked with sun-bleached strands. "Quinn Irwin, madam. Looks like you could use some assistance." Zara lifted her chin, refusing to show the fear coursing through her veins. "Zara Calloway. I'm afraid I've had a rather unfortunate welcome to Montana territory." She glanced at the still form of the driver and felt tears sting her eyes. "That poor man. Stagecoach robberies have been getting worse." Quinn knelt to check the driver before shaking his head solemnly. "Nothing to be done for him now. We need to get you to safety before those bandits return with friends. I'm headed to Redemption Creek. My uncle owns the mercantile there." Quinn's expression shifted, something unreadable crossing his features. "Josiah Calloway is your uncle?" "Yes. Do you know him?" "Everyone knows everyone in Redemption Creek." He began gathering her scattered belongings. "It's not Boston or New York, Miss Calloway. It's a hard place for hard people. I'm tougher than I look, Mr. Irwin." He almost smiled then, the ghost of it playing at the corners of his mouth. "You'll need to be." Within an hour, Zara found herself riding behind Quinn on his chestnut gelding, her salvaged trunk tied to the saddle. The steady rhythm of hoofbeats matched the pounding of her heart as she clung to his waist, the unfamiliar intimacy making her cheeks flush despite their dire circumstances. "Have you lived in Redemption Creek long?" she asked, trying to distract herself from the warmth of his body against hers. "Born and raised on the Double Circle Ranch just outside town. My father built it from nothing." Pride resonated in his voice. "Now it's mine to maintain." "And do you?" "Maintain it, I mean. I do my best." His shoulders tensed slightly. "It hasn't been easy these past few years. Drought. Cattle fever. Rustlers." Zara nodded, though he couldn't see her. "My uncle wrote that the town is growing. That's why he sent for me to help with the books at the mercantile. Growing, yes. Changing too, not always for the better." When they crested the final hill overlooking Redemption Creek, Zara's breath caught. The town sprawled in the valley below, a collection of wooden buildings surrounding a main street. A church steeple punctuated the skyline, and beyond the settlement, the mountains rose, majestic and imposing. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It is," Quinn agreed, but there was a heaviness in his tone. "But beauty can be deceptive, Miss Calloway. Redemption Creek has teeth." They rode down the hill, the gelding picking its way carefully along the winding trail. As they entered the main street, Zara felt eyes turning toward them, curious, assessing, judging. Women in practical calico dresses paused in their errands to stare. Men stepped out of the saloon to watch their approach. "Quite the welcoming committee," Zara murmured. "We don't get many new faces, especially not—" Quinn cut himself off. "Especially not what, Mr. Irwin? Women? Easterners? People with all their teeth?" A genuine laugh escaped him then, surprising them both. "All of the above, I reckon." They stopped before a 2-story building with Calloway Mercantile painted in bold letters across the facade. Quinn dismounted and reached up to help Zara down, his hands strong at her waist. For a moment, they stood too close before he stepped back, clearing his throat. The door to the mercantile swung open, and a man with graying hair and Zara's same green eyes emerged, wiping his hands on an apron. "Good Lord, is that my niece?" On the back of Quinn Irwin's horse, Josiah Calloway's booming voice carried down the street. "Uncle Josiah." Zara moved forward, embracing the man she hadn't seen since she was a child. "What in tarnation are you doing with Irwin? Where's the stagecoach?" Quinn stepped forward. Bandits, Josiah. 5 miles out. Driver didn't make it. Josiah's face paled. Franklin? They killed Franklin. Quinn nodded grimly. I'll let Sheriff Daniels know. Someone will need to retrieve the body. Josiah pulled Zara closer protectively. You're safe. That's what matters. Come inside, child. You must be exhausted. Mr. Irwin saved my life, Zara said, turning back to Quinn. I'm deeply grateful. Quinn replaced his hat, the brim shadowing his eyes. Just happened to be in the right place. He nodded to Josiah. I'll bring word once we've dealt with Franklin and the coach. As he turned to leave, Josiah called after him. Irwin, thank you for bringing my niece safely. Quinn paused, but didn't turn around fully. She's your family, Josiah. Despite everything between us, I wouldn't leave her stranded. With that cryptic statement, he mounted his horse and rode toward the sheriff's office. What did he mean? Despite everything between us? Zara asked as her uncle ushered her inside. Josiah's expression darkened. Quinn Irwin and I have history. His father and I were once partners in this store before Thomas decided ranching was his true calling. He sighed heavily. There have been disagreements since. Inside the mercantile, Zara was struck by the organized chaos shelves stocked with everything from flour and sugar to tools, fabric, and ammunition. A pot-bellied stove sat in the corner, and the scent of coffee, leather, and tobacco permeated the air. This will be your home now, Josiah said, leading her through the store to a staircase at the back. I've prepared the room upstairs for you. It's not fancy like what you're used to in Boston, but it's perfect, Zara assured him, though she hadn't seen it yet. After losing her parents to influenza the previous winter, any place with family felt like a blessing. That evening, after washing away the dust of travel and changing into a simple blue dress, Zara joined her uncle for dinner in the small apartment behind the store. She noticed how he winced when reaching for the salt, his knuckles swollen and red. The arthritis is why I wrote to you, he admitted when she inquired. The books need a steadier hand than mine these days, and I remember how sharp you were with figures even as a girl. I'm happy to help, Uncle Josiah. After mother and father. She swallowed hard. I needed a fresh start. Josiah patted her hand. You'll find it here, though it won't be easy. Redemption Creek isn't kind to newcomers, especially women with Eastern manners and education. So I've been warned. Mr. Irwin seemed to think I wouldn't last. Did he now? Josiah frowned. Well, Quinn knows this town better than most. Folks here can be set in their ways. I'm not afraid of hard work or harsh judgments, Uncle. I've faced plenty of both. Later, as Zara prepared for bed in her small but comfortable room, she heard voices from the street below. Curious, she moved to the window, parting the curtain slightly. A group of men stood outside the saloon across the way, Quinn Irwin among them. Even in the dim light of the street lanterns, she recognized his tall figure and the set of his shoulders. That the Eastern girl you brought in today? One of the men asked, his voice carrying in the quiet night. Miss Calloway. Quinn corrected, his tone neutral. Pretty little thing, another commented. Bet she won't last a month in this town. Too soft. Too fancy. 2 weeks, someone else wagered. Before she's begging to go back east. Zara's cheeks burned with indignation, but she leaned closer to hear Quinn's response. They said she'd never last here. The first man continued, clearly goading Quinn. What do you think, Irwin? You got a better look at her than most. There was a long pause before Quinn answered, his voice low but clear in the night air. She's lasted in my heart already. The men burst into laughter, clearly thinking he was joking, but Zara saw how Quinn stood straighter, unsmiling, before walking away from the group. She let the curtain fall back into place, her heart beating rapidly. What a strange man to defend her honor while hardly knowing her, especially given whatever conflict existed between him and her uncle. The next morning, Zara arose with the sun, determined to prove herself useful immediately. She dressed in her most practical skirt and shirtwaist, pinned her chestnut hair into a simple knot, and descended to the store where Josiah was already sweeping the porch. Good morning, Uncle. Where shall I begin? Josiah looked surprised but pleased. Most young ladies would be resting after such an ordeal. I'm not most young ladies, Zara replied with a smile. Show me the books. For the next several hours, Zara immersed herself in the mercantile's ledgers, discovering they were in worse disarray than her uncle had admitted. Columns didn't add up, inventory wasn't properly tracked, and several accounts appeared to be significantly in arrears. "Uncle Josiah," she said carefully when he returned from making a delivery, "have you noticed that the Wilkinson account is 3 months behind payment?" Josiah sighed, lowering himself into a chair beside her. "Drought hit their farm hard. They'll pay when they can. And the Johnsons? The Merricks? The Irwins?" She paused at the last name. "Times have been tough for everyone. We extend credit where needed. That's admirable, but not sustainable. You're owed nearly $800 collectively." Josiah rubbed his forehead. "That's the way business works out here, Zara. It's not Boston with contracts and strict payment terms. Out here, your word is your bond, and neighbors help neighbors." "Even neighbors you have history with?" she asked pointedly, tapping Quinn Irwin's account. Before Josiah could answer, the bell above the door jingled. Zara looked up to see Quinn himself entering, hat in hand. Their eyes met briefly before he nodded in greeting. "Josiah, Miss Calloway." "Mr. Irwin," Zara replied, suddenly very aware of what she'd overheard the previous night. "Quinn," Josiah acknowledged stiffly. "What can I do for you?" "Need some fence wire and nails. 30 pounds of coffee, 10 pounds of sugar." He hesitated. "And whatever Miss Calloway might need replaced after the robbery." Zara blinked in surprise. "That's very kind, but I tracked those bandits after I left town yesterday," Quinn continued. "Found your trunks broken open a few miles from the ambush site. Not much left worth salvaging." The realization that most of her possessions were truly gone hit Zara anew. She'd brought everything that mattered: her mother's cameo, her father's pocket watch, books she treasured, and clothes suited for her new life. Now all she had were the few items Quinn had saved and what she was wearing. Her voice faltered. "Put whatever the lady needs on my account," Quinn told Josiah. Josiah's eyebrows rose. "Your account is all ready. I'm bringing in 20 head of cattle to the railroad next week," Quinn interrupted. "I'll settle everything then." Zara found her voice. "I appreciate the gesture, Mr. Irwin, but I couldn't possibly. It's not charity, Miss Calloway. It's making things right." Quinn's gray eyes held her steadily. "Those bandits have been hitting travelers on that stretch for months. The sheriff and I have been trying to catch them. If we'd succeeded sooner, you wouldn't have lost your belongings. You're not responsible for their actions." "Maybe not. But I am responsible for helping where I can." He turned back to Josiah. "I'll load the wire and supplies. Have the coffee and sugar ready when I return." After Quinn strode out, Josiah shook his head. Stubborn as his father. Always was. "What happened between your families, Uncle?" Truly, Josiah was quiet for so long that Zara thought he might not answer. Finally, he sighed. "Thomas Irwin and I built this store together 25 years ago. We were best friends, more like brothers. Then Catherine came to town, the new schoolteacher." Zara leaned forward. "Quinn's mother." "Yes. Both Thomas and I fell in love with her. She chose Thomas." The pain of old wounds colored his voice. "I didn't handle it well. Said things I shouldn't have. Did things I'm not proud of." "What things?" "I tried to force Thomas out of the business. When that failed, I spread rumors about his cattle being diseased." Josiah looked down at his hands. "Catherine died in childbirth with Quinn. Thomas never forgave me for adding stress to her last months." "Oh, Uncle." "Quinn grew up knowing I was the man who'd betrayed his father. And then, 3 years ago when Thomas died, Quinn inherited not just the ranch, but all the bitterness between our families." Zara thought of Quinn's words the night before, "She's lasted in my heart already," and wondered how a man raised on such animosity could speak so kindly of someone connected to his enemy. When Quinn returned to collect his supplies, Zara approached him directly. "Mr. Irwin, I'd like to thank you properly for saving my life. Would you join us for dinner tomorrow evening?" Josiah nearly dropped the package of coffee he was wrapping. Quinn looked equally stunned. "That's not necessary, Miss Calloway. I insist, unless you have other obligations." Quinn glanced at Josiah, whose expression remained carefully neutral. "No obligations that can't be rearranged," he finally said. "Excellent." 7 o'clock. After Quinn left with his purchases, Josiah confronted her. "What are you doing, Zara? Inviting Quinn Irwin to dinner? People will talk." "Let them. I'm merely thanking the man who saved my life," she replied calmly. "Besides, isn't it time to end this feud? Catherine has been gone for what, 30 years? 28. Josiah corrected automatically, then sighed. You don't understand how things work here. Then educate me, uncle. Because from where I stand, holding on to decades-old resentments seems a terrible waste of energy in a place where survival requires cooperation. The next morning, Zara ventured out alone for the first time since her arrival. She needed fabric to replace some of her lost clothing and wanted to explore Redemption Creek in daylight. The town was more vibrant than she'd initially realized. In addition to the mercantile, there was a hotel, 2 saloons, a blacksmith, a small bank, a church, and various other businesses lining the main street. As she passed the millinery shop, she overheard 2 women talking. That's her Josiah Calloway's niece from back east. One whispered not quietly enough. Arrived on the back of Quinn Irwin's horse, if you can believe it. She won't last here, the other replied confidently. Look at those hands, never seen a day of real work. Zara straightened her shoulders and continued walking, refusing to acknowledge their gossip. At the dressmaker's shop, she selected practical fabrics, sturdy cotton in navy and brown before inquiring about work. Work? Mrs. Bennett, the dressmaker, repeated in surprise. But you're Josiah Calloway's niece. Surely you don't need employment. I believe in earning my keep, Zara replied. And I'm quite skilled with a needle. Mrs. Bennett studied her thoughtfully. Can you do fine embroidery? I have more orders than I can handle for the harvest dance next month. I'd be happy to help in the evenings, after I've finished at the mercantile. By the time Zara returned to the store, word had spread that Josiah Calloway's Eastern niece was seeking work despite her uncle's comfortable circumstances. The news had evolved from scandal to curiosity. Perhaps she wasn't as pampered as they'd assumed. That evening, Zara prepared a simple but hearty meal of beef stew, fresh bread from the bakery, and apple pie. She'd changed into her one remaining good dress of forest green that complemented her eyes and arranged her hair in a more becoming style than her daytime practicality required. Quinn arrived precisely at 7, freshly shaved and wearing clean clothes, though his collar looked uncomfortably tight. He'd brought a small bouquet of wildflowers, which he presented to Zara with a shy formality that touched her. These are beautiful, Mr. Irwin. Thank you. Quinn, he corrected. If we're to have dinner together, you might as well use my given name. Then you must call me Zara. Dinner began awkwardly, with Josiah and Quinn exchanging stilted pleasantries about the weather and local news. Zara, determined to breach the wall between them, asked Quinn about his ranch. The double circle has been in my family for nearly 30 years, he explained, warming to the subject. We run about 500 head of cattle now, though we've had as many as 800 in better years. And you manage it alone? Zara asked. I have 4 full-time hands and hire extras during roundup and branding. It's not the biggest spread in the territory, but it's well situated with good water access. Quinn's father had a gift for finding water, Josiah interjected unexpectedly. Could practically smell it underground. Saved many a homestead during drought years by pointing folks to where they should dig their wells. Quinn looked surprised at the compliment. I didn't know you remembered that about him. I remember everything about Thomas, Josiah said quietly. The good and the bad. The atmosphere shifted subtly as Quinn nodded. He said the same about you, right up until the end. Zara held her breath, sensing a moment of potential reconciliation. Josiah set down his fork. Did he suffer much? At the end, Quinn's expression softened. No, it was quick. His heart just stopped one morning. He was in the garden Catherine planted, tending her roses. Josiah's eyes glistened. She would have liked that. Yes, Quinn agreed. She would have. After dinner, while Josiah rested by the fire, Zara and Quinn stepped out onto the small balcony overlooking the back of the property. The Montana night spread above them, stars scattered like diamond dust across the velvet sky. Thank you, Quinn said quietly. What you did tonight, bringing me and your uncle together, it took courage. Or foolishness, Zara smiled. The line between the two is often thin. Either way, it's been healing. For both of us, I think. Zara turned to face him. I heard what you said that night, outside the saloon. When Quinn looked confused, she continued. About me lasting in your heart already. Color rose in his cheeks, visible even in the dim light. That. Did you mean it? Or was it just to silence their wagers about my departure? Quinn looked at her directly, his gray eyes serious. I never say things I don't mean, Zara. It's not my way. You don't know me. I know enough. His voice was soft but certain. I know you faced bandits without falling apart. I know you came to a strange town ready to work rather than expecting to be catered to. I know you orchestrated dinner tonight to heal a rift that began before you were born. He paused. And I know that when I first saw you step out of that overturned coach, something in me recognized something in you. Zara's heart quickened. That's quite poetic for a rancher. Even cowboys read, Miss Calloway. His smile was gentle. Though I admit, poetry isn't my usual fare. The weeks that followed brought changes to Redemption Creek. Zara established herself at the mercantile, reorganizing the books and gently, but firmly collecting on overdue accounts. In the evenings, she embroidered delicate patterns for Mrs. Bennet, earning both money and respect. On Sundays, she taught reading to children at the church. And nearly every day, Quinn found reasons to visit the mercantile. Sometimes he needed supplies. Other times, he brought fresh vegetables from his garden or game from a hunting trip. Occasionally, he simply came to talk, leaning against the counter while Zara worked, telling her stories about the land and its people. Josiah watched their growing friendship with mixed emotions. But as summer turned to early autumn, even he had to admit that Quinn's presence had become a welcome one in their home. He's a good man, Josiah acknowledged one evening after Quinn had departed. Better than his father in some ways. Better than me, certainly. He respects you more than you realize, Zara replied, washing the dinner dishes. He told me he's always admired how you built this business. Josiah looked surprised. Did he now? The past doesn't have to determine the future, Uncle. You both love the same woman. But that was another lifetime ago. The town's gossip evolved as well. What began as skepticism about Zara's ability to adapt became curiosity, then reluctant admiration. When the Wilkinsons' youngest child fell ill with fever, it was Zara who sat with the family for 3 nights, applying cool cloths and singing soft lullabies until the crisis passed. When fire threatened the livery stable, she formed a bucket brigade alongside the men, her fine hands blistering from the rough rope. They said she'd never last here. Quinn overheard Mrs. Bennet tell the banker's wife at church. But look at her now, more Montana than Boston already. The harvest dance arrived in a blaze of autumn glory. The town hall had been decorated with wheat sheaves, corn husks, and lanterns, creating a warm golden glow. A 3-piece band played lively tunes, and tables groaned under the weight of food brought by every family. Zara wore a new dress for the occasion, deep blue, with delicate embroidery she'd done herself along the collar and cuffs. Her hair was arranged in soft curls, with a few tendrils escaping artfully around her face. When Quinn arrived to escort her and Josiah, his expression of admiration made her cheeks warm. "You look beautiful," he said simply. At the dance, Zara found herself welcomed into conversations and introduced to people she hadn't yet met. The initial wariness had been replaced by genuine interest in her opinions and experiences. Quinn remained close, his hand occasionally brushing hers, his eyes finding her across the room whenever they were separated. During a reel, partnered with the blacksmith's son, Zara caught sight of Quinn speaking earnestly with her uncle in a corner of the hall. Both men looked serious, and Josiah kept glancing in her direction. When the dance ended, Quinn approached, asking for the next dance. As they moved together in a waltz, his hand warm at her waist, Quinn seemed uncharacteristically nervous. "Is everything all right?" Zara asked. "You and Uncle Josiah seemed deep in conversation." "I was asking his permission," Quinn replied, his voice low. "Permission for what?" "To court you properly." His gray eyes searched hers. "If you're amenable." Zara's heart leapt, but she maintained her composure. "And what did he say?" "He said I'd better treat you better than he treated my father, or he'd shoot me himself." Quinn's mouth quirked in a half-smile. "Then he said he couldn't think of a man he'd rather see you with." "And what do you say, Quinn Irwin?" He drew her slightly closer, still maintaining propriety, but creating a pocket of intimacy amidst the swirling dancers. "I say that from the moment I saw you, something changed in me. I say that these past months watching you build a life here, seeing your strength, your kindness, your determination have only confirmed what I somehow knew instantly." "And what was that?" "That you belong here. Not just in Redemption Creek, but in my life." As autumn deepened into winter, Quinn and Zara's courtship became the town's favorite topic of conversation. He brought her to the Double Circle Ranch, showing her the house his father had built and expanded over the years, a sturdy two-story structure with large windows and a wraparound porch. She showed him her mother's cameo and read him passages from her favorite books by the mercantile stove on snowy evenings. In December, when the first heavy snow blanketed Redemption Creek, Quinn arrived at the mercantile with his sleigh and a proposal. "Marry me, Zara. Not someday, but soon." Before spring roundup, they wed in February, with Josiah giving the bride away and the entire town in attendance. The feud that had divided two families for nearly 3 decades ended as Zara Calloway became Zara Irwin, bringing together not just two people, but healing a community's old wounds. "You know," the sheriff said to Quinn at the wedding celebration, "when you first brought her to town, everyone was betting on how quickly she'd leave." "I remember," Quinn replied, watching his bride dance with her uncle, her face glowing with happiness. "They said she'd never last here," the sheriff continued. "Looks like everyone was wrong." Quinn smiled, his eyes never leaving Zara. "I told them then, though they thought I was joking, she'd lasted in my heart already." He accepted a congratulatory handshake from the sheriff. "Some things you just know from the beginning." When spring arrived, Zara and Quinn planted a garden at the Double Circle Ranch, vegetables for practicality and roses in memory of Catherine. Josiah visited often, his arthritis improving with the exercises Zara insisted he practice and the reduced workload now that she handled the mercantile's books from the ranch. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the Montana sky in shades of pink and gold, Quinn took Zara's hand in his. "Are you happy here? Do you ever miss Boston?" Zara leaned against his shoulder. "Boston was where I was from. This is where I belong. Even with all the hardships, the drought years and blizzards, and everything else this land throws at us. Especially with those," she replied. "Because facing them with you makes even the hardest days worthwhile." As if to punctuate her words, a rider appeared on the horizon, heading toward the ranch at a gallop. Quinn stood, recognizing one of his hands. "Trouble?" Zara asked, rising beside him. "Probably. That's Pete. He was checking the north pasture today." When the rider arrived, his news was unexpected. "Boss, the mare, the one you thought wouldn't make it through winter, she's foaled. Twin colts, both healthy." Quinn laughed with delight, lifting Zara and spinning her around. "See? Even in this harsh land, life finds a way to surprise us with its generosity." As they rode out together to see the new foals, the setting sun gilding the prairie grasses around them, Zara knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, the Eastern woman who had proven everyone wrong and the cowboy who had recognized her strength from the beginning. In Redemption Creek, they still tell the story of how Quinn Irwin brought Zara Calloway to town on the back of his horse after a stagecoach robbery, how they healed a decades-old feud, and how together they built a legacy of resilience and love that lasted far beyond the wagers about her departure. Because sometimes, the heart recognizes its home long before reason can make sense of it.